Hello everybody, welcome back to BareRose Garage. What do we got going on today? Well, let's take a look at one of these little oddities called the 904, I believe it is, Chrysler transmission, automatic transmission. The little automatic that came in this 1965 Dodge Dart that you can see right here that I've been working on. Now, one of the oddities of this little thing, as I've said a couple of times in this whole video series, I have worked on a few of these little Chryslers, just never really deep dove into them. Now, this 1965 904 automatic transmission, it's almost identical to the old push button ones that I used to work on too. That's servicing them. You know, you drop the pan off of them, you change the screen, clean out the screen or the filter in them depending on the years, and then you stick them back on. There's some real oddities going on with these freaky little things though, and I'll show you. Now, as I said on Dallas's Live, I did find the 7th level of hell. What was the 7th level of hell? This is a dual cable automatic transmission. It's got 2 shift cables, kinda. This one here is for the park. The park gear is actually right under here. Very reminiscent of the old push button dash ones. They had drive, low, neutral, you know, all up on the dash. And you push a button, it was vacuum operated and pulled these cables for you. This here is the kick down. That's pretty standard on all of them. But you can see there's no shift arms out here. It's all internal. Now, this one isn't quite so bad. It is. Trying to pull these in sub-zero weather, like I said, it's the 7th degree of hell. You have to go down in here and push. There's a little sprag inside of there that holds this cable on. You got to push. Take a little awl or a small screwdriver, push it down in there and separate it and give it a yank, and that'll pull away from it and come out of there. That one's not too bad after you pull this bolt out right here. You just yank on it and chances are it'll come out. I was scared of doing it though because I don't want to break anything, and I know this has been set and it's all rubber sealed in there, and that rubber has been on there for a very long time, and I don't want to build shut down for something that already works. This stuff all works, so I didn't want to break it pulling it apart. Let's just get into that. The park one, on the other hand, this one is a complete nightmare. You undo the bolts off of the bottom here, and this drops out just enough that you can reach up in and pull the roll pin out from the cable and then work the spring off of the end of the cable and pull it out after you've pulled this Rube Goldberg lock right here. There's another bolt here you take off, and then you push the pin in to align it with the cutout in it, and then you pull it down through as you're unwinding the spring that's here. You got to be very, very, very careful as you're doing all of that, because if you pull down too hard, the only thing that this cable is attached to is a spring that comes up and grabs a hold of the park lever. If you warp that spring by pulling it too far down, it won't go into park, or it'll go into park and it won't come out of park. It's all using that spring tension to pull the lever or let go of the lever as this cable goes in and out from the shifter. Now, on a push button transmission just like this, and you got it up on the dash, you'll notice there is no park. It was usually a lever or that slid sideways like this, or like this on the dash depending on the years, or it was a lever down below that you would pull, that would pull this lever here, this cable, and put it in, or that's in park, or take it out of park. Again, it's all using spring tension on a tiny little spring. When you look at it in there, it's like the thickness of a human hair. So it doesn't take much to bend or warp that spring. And they are a nightmare to put back in. You got to put the cable back through, wind it back through onto the cable end, and then push it another roll pin inside of it, and you can only pull that cover down about that far. I gave up. That's when I said enough of this, and I went up top, because this is a floor shift car. It's got a little automatic floor shifter, I guess, to kind of give it the feel of a performance car. Anyway, I went up top and I undid them from the shifter up top, pushed these cables through the floor, and pulled them all as one. And while I was at it, I left all of the coolant lines intact because I didn't want to bend everything. And well, to be quite honest with you, if I do use this automatic transmission back in here, I would reroute these. I would totally reroute these powers, these tranny coolant lines. This is, whew. There's way too many sharp bends in this. This could have been handled a whole lot more different. And they have room. I was looking at that while I was under the car. And that brings me to this. If you're ever setting up an automatic transmission and you're running your coolant lines, try to keep them straight. Or any sharp angles, sharp bends out of them. You don't want any of that. And this goes back to hydraulics. Whenever you're setting up a hydraulic system on, say, a piece of equipment, a backhoe or anything like that, if you'll notice on them, they try to keep their hydraulic lines all as straight as possible. You know, they got to bend around stuff, but you'll notice on them, they're usually swoop bends down to where it needs to go into a hard one, but they try to do a swoop 90 instead of just hard 90s. The reason for that is every time you put a sharp bend, when you're dealing with hydraulics and oil, you're adding heat to it, because that's a place where the oil can compact, and if it's already warm anyway, you're just emphasizing more and more heat into the system. And the killer of hydraulics is heat. An automatic transmission, well, there's a reason they call them a hydro drive. Basically, all an automatic transmission is a big hydraulic pump. And what you're driving on is hydraulic fluid pressure. So anytime you can eliminate as many sharp bends, by sharp bends I mean they got it pretty good here as it swoops, but they got a 90 here, a 90 here, back over to a 90, back over to another 90, to a 90, to a 90, up to a dog leg in. Every one of those bends like that is a restrictive point where it's going to emphasize more heat. If I redesign this and put this back in, I'm going to take I'll probably take all of this section out of it and do it more straight in and put swooping bends into it to help keep this tranny cool with swooping bends. I hope that helps anybody out there. And these little 904s, I'll tell you what, this is one of the lightest automatic transmissions I have ever had to deal with. I thought a C4 was a light and easy transmission. Ain't got nothing on this Chrysler 904. I could pick this up and carry it around with me if I wanted to. Usually you don't get that with an automatic, and it's still full of fluid. I've just picked it up and walk it around, and if you've seen me, I'm a little guy. but I'm a little guy that sometimes gets out there and keeps that metal hot. So we'll catch you on the next one.